Welcome to Chaps Many Cultures, episode 63. Today, we'll talk about when is the right time to do cultural training. Is there a right time? And when is it? That's what we're going to find out today.
Now, in the green room, I was thinking, you spin me right round, baby, right round.
Round, record, baby, right round. Okay, we just dated ourselves. Welcome, everybody, to Chaps Many Cultures, live and direct from the studio complex right here, and also from our on-the-road TV truck. He's out there.
Roaming, the roving reporter tuning from
live from on top.
That's right. I'm traveling the country, interviewing interns to fill up Two Chaps Plaza as we populate to.
Oh, right, all right.
I don't know
interns.
How is everybody?
I hope you're all doing splendid, people. It's a later issue today, a later episode, just to make sure that everybody gets to join live, right? So we don't want to discriminate time zones. That would be uncouth. And time is of the essence when you think about doing cultural training and coaching and issuing it to yourself or to your team members, to your organization as a whole. That's why we thought, let's talk about what's the best time to do this? Is there a best time? And if so, how do I find out what that is? What are your thoughts around that, Brett?
Well, probably two aspects of it: global mobility and just basically an organization that might be working across cultures with a multicultural team domestically, but may also be engaging with places abroad. So, you know, there's two sides of it. I mean, in the global mobility space, there's certainly a strong argument for providing it, but there is also the underlying question about when do you do it? Do you do it before you leave, or do you wait until you arrive in country? And there's many different opinions on that.
That's typically a question that I get from the mobility managers or relocation people or whatever their designation is in the organization, those people who handle the people who go abroad. And they sometimes ask me, so, well, what do you suggest is best? Should we do pre-departure or post-arrival? And my answer is yes and yes. So the ideal time, and I'm being only halfway facetious here, I think the ideal timing for expatriate cultural training is to maybe revisit the terminology and ask yourself, is training in it by itself the solution you want, and will it give you the results you want for your expatriate employee? We can think about that, because the alternative would be training combined with a coaching aspect, but that's the second part of the conversation. So the answer is yes. I think ideally you do pre-departure. You handle some of the logistics aspects and the getting ready for and what to the ground. So the first kind of stuff that is in your face and immediate. Arrival, when your team member has already developed a deeper understanding of the location in which they will be living and working for a while. Then we talk about the deeper stuff, the underneath the surface level stuff, the whys, do's and don'ts here, whys over here. And so we have a portion of the training that will be delivered pre-departure and another portion of the training post-arrival. In my opinion, the ideal way to deliver it. How do you feel about this, Paul?
Yeah, I think it's great. If we can have access to people before they leave, maybe explore some of their perceptions, their experiences also. They may have had experience in the country, so we can build on whatever experience they've had in the past. We could also explore what their preconceptions are of the culture, the host culture they're going to, and perhaps affirm or maybe assuage some of those opinions. And then also, after they get there, the ability to be and working with the new team that they're going to be working with. How often does it happen when people arrive in another country and they're not even, their team is so multicultural that they're actually discovered they're working with a South African, an Australian, a Korean, an Indian person. Therefore, that changes the conversation drastically. So this is fantastic. I think it's ideal. Just to your point, yeah.
And I think what we found, especially now in COVID times, what clients are now understanding better than they were a little bit hesitant to embrace the concept in the past, was we introduced to them, hey, we can do a 1-day, 2-day training program. No worries, that can be done. It may not be the ideal delivery format, but if this is what you, dear client, have envisioned, and if this is what you think is best, then won't be in the way of your goal setting and your objectives. However, we would advise you to not do a 1-day, 2-day training program. Let's split it up into multiple consecutive segments that can be delivered over time, and thereby have a little bit of a repetition, and thereby have a little bit of application of learnings in the time in between, and resulting in a more higher retention levels of what we teach and what we pass on to the expatriate employee. In the past, I've noticed there was some resistance around this. Now with COVID and Corona, much of the training, if not all of the training, has been delivered virtually via tools like this, video conferencing, video tools, right? Mm-hmm. And it is incredibly hard and, in my opinion, nonsensical to expect to deliver a 1-day training program really on 1 day via Zoom or Teams or WebEx. So the nature of the game has changed, and companies are now completely willing and accepting of doing it incrementally, and thereby, well, getting what we were suggesting in the past. Now it has become the new default due to the current circumstances in the industry. Have you seen similar trends?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now you've got the flexibility. I just had a conversation with a client today, and they said, well, hey, we can split this up, and I think it's a great idea. Wait till we get there, we do this first session and then wait till we get there. And it gives you so much more flexibility, and you're meeting the clients where they are. And I think that's a wonderful way to put it. And I think and then also the other aspect of providing training is there's always an argument for providing cross-cultural training for teams that are not, these are not people that are moving, but they're actually engaging, and they are working on projects where they're interacting with people from different cultures. And of course, we're always careful to say culture is not the answer for everything, but it's a good starting point of the conversation. So my personal opinion is that you're doing it should be just part of any well-rounded training curriculum, development curriculum for any organization, because not bringing this into the conversation is really you've got a 2-legged stool, and that never works. Oh, I guess you can have a 10-legged stool with one missing, that'd still stand up. But anyway,
I mean, I'm sometimes a bit in my market outreach. I'm sometimes a little bit aggressive, one would say, or I'm not afraid to really push the pain buttons with some of our clients. And one of the marketing messages that I've been using in the past, for a couple of months now, was triggered by a conversation I had with a client who was not seeing the connection between cultural intelligence training, or as I call it, in the way we do it, we call it ICE-Q. So IQ plus CQ plus EQ. So EQ for emotional intelligence, CQ for cultural intelligence. The three together heart, mind, and soul are, I think, the power skill that any team in an organization that does business internationally should have. So the client did not necessarily see the connection between developing ICE-Q for their team members and, well, some key organizational metrics like talent acquisition, talent retention, obviously profit margin, closing rates and sales, customer satisfaction rates, return shipment stuff, all of these key APIs and these key metrics that many organizations have for their performance, they did not necessarily see the connection with ICE-Q. And I said, well, fine, if here's my pitch, or here's how I think these things are connected. And if you don't want to see that, if you don't want to include building ICE-Q into your profit and loss, then you might as well put employee turnover into your profit and loss. And you might put, I don't know, lost deals and missed opportunities in your P&L. Here's a box of free tissues. They're on us. Don't tell me I didn't tell you that, right? So I truly believe there is an immediate connection between those things.
Yeah, and something just came to my mind about that conversation. It's also a serious conversation about how you show appreciation for employees. And not all cultures are motivated by money alone. You know, there's this oftentimes a good approach to show appreciation for people from particular cultures, and that speaks more volumes than a checkbook issue. And so training and development, the opportunity that comes through training and development and feeding their curiosity, feeding the build-up of their knowledge, is something that you not only should do from a commercial point of view, but I guess from a personal point of view, to retain your employees, because we all know retention of employees is a huge issue. And exactly. So that you are affirming what you see, and I would push buttons too and say, well, how much value do you actually see in your employees? You know, and I think also the other point of it is recognizing that culture is one aspect of the interaction that a team or a group of people have with each other, means that perhaps the minority of a minority group in the organization all of a sudden feels that they're being seen. They're visible. Perhaps their tendencies or the influence of their culture is now being recognized as a value, not something that's causing an issue, but as a value, something that can really be a good contributor to the organization.
Thank you for bringing this up, because too often organizations see cultural training as something that is applied once there has been a problem identified. Once we recognize a challenge, then we bring in cultural training as a fix, as a Band-Aid maybe even. So doing this or including this in your continuous learning curriculum as an organization, proactively instead of retroactively, is showing value to the employees. And I don't know how many studies have been done around this, especially the younger generations that have been entering workforce and now leadership positions, whether that's the millennials or that generation bracket of what is referred to as millennials or Gen Zs. The younger generations expect there to be opportunities for further development. I have a couple of coaching clients that are in their late 20s that are now growing out of their entry-level positions and moving up the food chain, and they make their job decisions where they want to work. They make that into a large part depending on how much personal and how much professional development opportunities does the employer put in front of them. And if they're not there, then they find this company not as attractive as the other company who does that. So ICE-Q however you call it in your organization, cultural training, maybe diversity, inclusion, equity training, maybe cultural awareness programs. There are multiple labels, and obviously they stand for different things. However, the big umbrella, in my opinion, is culture. If that is not part of your conversation, of your learning and development conversation in your organization, I think you're missing a huge chunk.
Yeah, certainly are. Certainly are. And so the answer to the question, I guess the overall question is just like voting, early and often. Get it done. Get it done. Don't wait. And of course, in training, you don't have to wait for an election. Unlike voting, you can do cultural training at any time. You can make it an ongoing part of your development.
And I think our debate is much more civil than recent debates, right? I think we've
What are you saying? What are you saying? What are you saying?
I think we've displayed a much more higher degree of communication skills than some other debates that have been aired publicly. But I'm not going to be sidetracked here. So
No.
when do I know as a company that, if it's not about expatriates per se, but about a group of people who works towards a common objective, when does it matter? When is it time to do cultural training? Yes, often and repeatedly. Make it part of your curriculum. And if it's not that yet, I'm not going to shame you if it's not that yet, if it's not part of your curriculum yet. However, you will recognize that it's time when you have different types of people in your organization. And that means when you think of cultural training, that doesn't mean that they hold different passports. That can be the reason. In my opinion, it shouldn't be the only reason. So culture is not defined by nationality. It could be you see a generational gap in your workforce. You see an ethnicity gap in your organization. You see a language barrier between certain parts of your workforce. Gender gap. I mean, every one of us is part of multiple cultures at the same time. I am by birth German and by choice American, so I am, nationality speaking, I am playing with two different sets of culture. I'm also a father of two daughters. That puts me in a certain basket. I am a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. That puts me in another basket. I speak a handful of languages. That puts me in yet another basket. So culture is more than your passport. And if you have these different aspects on your workforce, that is something that you want to acknowledge, that you want to address, and figure out, how do my people work best with each other? What do they need to know of each other in order to be the best that they can be? Right, Brett?
Yeah. I actually think you brought up another point, is that it's a great way to discover through a formalized process a little bit more about your employees. You discover more about their background. There's probably in an organization that doesn't do this, there's people walking around that speak like three or four different languages, and those kind of influences may have an effect on the possibilities that they can contribute to the company. Now, maybe they've never been asked and they've never thought to bring it up, but it's something if you discover these things in these trainings, that you discover new skills, new abilities, new possibilities, new opportunities for people and for people to develop in an organization. So, I mean, we've answered our own question. We're kind of convincing ourselves. Are you sold?
I'm totally sold. Where do I sign?
Where do I sign? Great. Well, if you want to find out more, we'll happily come in and shame you. I mean, we're good at that too, but we'd like to come in and help you.
If you want to know more, here's a good start. You see it scrolling along the bottom.
And I'd like to hear from fellow trainers and coaches too. How do you make that argument? How do you? It's selling, but it is an argument. It is a humanistic argument. How do you make that case to the clients and the individual clients that you're interacting with from a day-to-day basis? Because we don't have all the answers, and we'd certainly love to learn. So that's about all I've got.
Of course, it's selling, right? I mean, selling is not necessarily us asking you to give us money for a service that we will provide for you. Yes, that is selling too, but selling means to lead somebody to make a decision, to choose one path. Because as long as you don't choose a path, you'll be standing where you are right now. In order to continue forward, you have to make up your mind. Will I go this way, that way? Will I keep going straight? But that's a decision. Latin, decidere, to cut off from. You cut yourself off from any other option, and then you go with the option that you chose. That's what sales process is. It's prompting that decision making. So there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually moving the needle forward for everybody involved.
Yeah. And, courting is a sales process. So choosing your life partner, choosing, you can't do it with your family, but you can do it with your partner, and you're selling, right?
Find out who takes the garbage out to the trash can, or convincing your child to go to bed at a certain hour. That is a sales process.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again. Thank you again. We got it. We got this one in late, but who knows what time we'll turn up.
Never too late for a good show.
It's never too late for a good show. Absolutely.
See y'all tomorrow. Two Chaps, cultures.
Bye, guys.